Climate change is a very important and grave issue that we as humans need to overcome. While the current situation can be described as rather mild and merely noticeable, the reality is that one day in the future, the next generations are going to be affected by the choices and actions we take right now. Coastal flooding, desertification, ecological destruction, and the economic devastation that will arise are just a fraction of things that people have to deal with if climate change to go unchecked. Of course, this means that action can be taken to mitigate and overcome this impending crisis that looms over all of us. However, in the end, it needs to be decided on what has to change, to what of an extent, and who is going to do it, which varies across people with different opinions. The argument on who should the burden of responsibility fall upon is a tricky question, but can be agreed upon by some that while personal changes have some leverage on this issue, government intervention and responsibility is paramount to the successful tackling of the problem. While changes made by the people to lessen the anthropogenic impact on our planet can be a useful weapon for the survival of humanity, it is unfortunately not enough. In order to cut our impact on the environment, luxuries which we take for granted needs to be sacrificed. Of course, while some may tolerate the prospect of being vegan, using public transportation, consuming goods with sustainable methods of production, etc., others do not either because it is simply inconvenient or because it is unavoidable. There are many countries in the world with lenient laws regarding eco-friendliness in industry and/or have inadequate public transport for the public to use, making a true eco-friendly way of living in these areas impossible. An example of this is the frequent burning of rainforests in Indonesia in order to clear land for palm tree agriculture, which is caused by the lenient and often unenforced laws regarding environmental responsibility of corporations. This makes palm oil an unwise product for Indonesian consumers to buy, yet Indonesia relies on palm oil as there are few cheap alternatives to it in the local market, and not to mention the burgeoning international market for palm oil. Another example is the reliance of fossil fuels for energy production in the great economic powers such as the USA, China, and India, as opposed to clean energy sources. The first example shows that choosing an alternative option will be too expensive and inconvenient for the masses to switch to, and the second example shows that an alternative option is only available through government support, as consumers do not have a direct say on where the electricity comes from. This means that consumers cannot be more eco-friendly no matter how they try if the governments assume no responsibility of the environment. The palm oil situation can be fixed by enforcing environmental laws for the companies and enacting reforestation initiatives. Meanwhile, the exploitation of clean energy sources can be made top priority by the governments all around the world to drastically cut greenhouse gas emissions. This is a good example on how government policymaking is invaluable to tackle climate change. Unity of the people, or rather, the lack thereof in society, is a big problem to solving the issue of climate change. Every element within society, including employees, employers, companies, NGOs, etc., need to take coordinated action if climate change is to be averted, and without a central overseeing authority, any uncoordinated effort will fall apart and collapse into entropy. Everybody wants their great-grandchildren to have a life worth living in a clean and looked-after planet, but not everyone will commence immediate action, either out of inability, choice, ignorance, and/or laziness to do so. It is of utmost importance to reiterate that actions are worth a world more than words in this situation. Aristotle was quoted dubbing humans as political animals in his work Politics, which can be interpreted in many ways. Either our political nature can either unite us against an objective evil or split us across petty differences. The government has a responsibility and authority to unite all aspects of society to fight climate change, because everybody is going to lose should we all go down this dark path. This is one of the reasons why we, the people, need and have the government, to guide us to prosperous and happy lives and away from any shape of evil. In a perfect world in which some orderly anarchy of the people can run by itself and manage grand-scale initiatives on its own, then the government would not be at all necessary. But we do not live in such a utopian society. We vote for governments in order to fulfill our aspirations that cannot be put into motion without a higher authority to lead its citizens to a goal. Without a government, it will be a free-for-all mess and send society straight into entropy. In an impending global crisis, we need unity and not disorder. 21st century neoliberal capitalism has brought many new wonders for consumers, the workforce, and business owners alike. However, it also wrenches the deep primal greed within us out. With so much wealth flowing around freely like water, there's a cycle where consumers can buy more and corporations can create more. For this cycle to run, a lot of resources are needed, and some of these resources contribute to climate change, such as cattle farming, fossil fuel burning, and the aforementioned burning of peatland in jungles, etc. Sooner or later, this cycle of greed will literally burn the planet. The problem here lies within economics, something the government has large influence in. The government can regulate the market and taxes to reduce overconsumption, and subsidized companies have done steps to mitigate emissions. Policies like this puts the brake on the cycle of frenzy just enough to cut a few megatons of carbon off the atmosphere. It may sound minuscule, but with correct enforcement and implementation, small numbers of greenhouse emissions will amount to a tidy and appropriate sum. In conclusion, the government has the right, responsibility, and ability to stop global warming and name their people. It is up to the government to set up the infrastructure and policies needed to curb climate change so that its people can follow suit. Society cannot solve a problem by itself if it lacks the authority and power held by the government. We as a society are nowhere near a stage where a utopian anarchy can happen. We are simply not that advanced enough, politically and or socially, for that to happen. The people are only accountable only as far as voting for government, and everything else needs to be done by the government, as they have been entrusted by people to do the job. Suppose a child were to fall off a cliff. Who should be responsible for the fate of the child? The parent whom the child fully entrusts his life with, or the ignorant child himself?